Hi, and welcome back to Focal Point AFR Talk. Brian Fisher, your convivial, amiable, congenial, and vocally challenged host. By the way, I'm going to talk a little about just about polling data before we go to the phones. 888-589-8840, 888-589-8840. If you want to join the program, talk about anything that we've talked about today, you pretty much can scrap all these polls that are out there because it's now becoming very clear that the pollsters are trying to tilt the scales for Barack Obama by radically oversampling Democrats. Got a story here about a New York Times Quinnipiac CBS poll, and they oversampled Democrats by 11 points. Now, according to Rasmussen, party affiliation right now is about 38% identify themselves as Republicans, 34% Democrats, 29% or something like that unaffiliated or independent. So if you're going to have a polling sample that reflects where party affiliation is today, not where it was in 2008, that was an anomaly because there was 7% higher turnout among Democrats in 2008. I mean, that flame has burned out. I mean, the bloom is off of that rose. You're not going to have those same kind of numbers in 2012. And if you were to weight these polls based on accurate samples, because they're oversampling Democrats almost in every case. They're trying to put a thumb on the scale for Barack Obama. But if you de-weight these, if you weight these properly, then Mitt Romney winds up having a lead of anywhere between 3 and 11 points in virtually every one of these polls. So you can pretty much ignore the polling data unless you get a breakdown on what the polling sample was. And unless it's +4 Republican, it's probably an inaccurate poll. Let's go, and CNN doesn't care. Here's clip number 11. Wolf Blitzer Howard Kurtz talking about the fact that the media has been tilting these polls, and they both agree that it's going on. Listen to this.
The question is, are we overly driven by these poll numbers, especially in these swing states?
Wolf, journalists are addicted, obsessed with poll numbers, and tend to forget that poll numbers can fluctuate very quickly. We're 45, 46 days out. We have 3 debates coming up. Mitt Romney, for all of his problems, and yes, media piling on to a certain degree, is still within striking distance against an incumbent president. And we're going to look pretty silly if come mid-October this race is even or Romney takes the lead. So
just like it was with Jimmy Carter and Ronald Reagan right up till the very end.
And in the end, it didn't work out so well for the incumbent president at that time. So what I hear you saying, Lauren, and I think, Howie, you agree, and I agree as well, is there are still 3 presidential debates, 1 vice presidential debate. The Republicans have a ton of money. The polls go up and go down. There's still an opportunity for Mitt Romney to come back.
So what Howard Kurtz is admitting is, look, journalists in the mainstream media are obsessed with polling data. And right now, they are trying to drive a narrative that the race is over. The election is over. It's too late. Obama's leading. He's surging in all the battleground states. Romney is toast. Romney is history. There isn't any point even in showing up to vote. This thing is over. And Kurtz, we're going to look real bad if he stages a comeback in the middle of October. Well, that's the whole point of these polls right now, is to try to get people so dispirited that they believe what they're being told by the mainstream media that the campaign is over. Now, here is Stephen Shepard. He's a reporter for the National Journal being interviewed by Hugh Hewitt. And Hewitt's pressing him on this oversampling of Democrats, and Stephen Shepard doesn't care. Let's listen.
It would at least indicate, albeit maybe in an exaggerated way, that there has been an important shift that we should be paying attention to.
But that's not the question. But would it bother you? Would it alarm you? Would it make you less trusting of the poll?
It would be something I would report on because I think that would be an important shift.
That wasn't the question. The question is just, would it Steve Shepard say, oh, that's not good. I'm not going to go with this one, or I'm not going to go with it strongly. Is there anything that would cause you as a reporter to say no?
I think I would find it interesting, and I would write about that.
But that wasn't my question.
That's not...
how long have you've been a reporter for 8 years? Have you ever run into a source that wouldn't answer the simple question? I mean, would it cause you concern?
I think I am answering your question.
No,
it wouldn't cause me concern.
It would not cause you concern.
Or 80% Republican. I would write that and say there's something going on here.
I got my answer. It would not cause you concern.
Well, that's his answer. I'm not concerned about this oversampling of Democrats. I admit it's happening. I admit the polls are skewed. Doesn't bother me a bit as a reporter. Let's go to the phones, 888-589-8840. Let's go to Diane in Dallas, Texas. Diane, you're on Focal Point with Brian Fisher. What's on your mind?
Hey, Brian, thanks so much for taking my call.
Sure.
And I'm going to be able to confirm something that you shared before the 2:30 break, and I can add information to it.
Okay.
And I believe your call screener said that you are familiar with a woman by the name of Brigitte Gabrielle.
Yes, she's been on this program before.
Right. And she has an organization, actforamerica.org.
Uh-huh.
And I'm hoping maybe someday you can have her on for a full hour because she has incredible information. But I was
Yeah,
listening
she's
to
a great
program.
resource.
Yep. And she can vet her sources, too. And she was on a program yesterday, and she described what actually happened to the ambassador, some of which is known, but the great majority of it is not for obvious reasons. As what's already known, there was no bulletproof windows, no reinforced doors. As you said before the 2:30 break, he was protected, and I use that term loosely, by a group called the February Brigade, and they are a front for the Muslim Brotherhood. On the day of the attack, the ambassador went to the safe house. The members of the brigade told the terrorists where he was. For 12 hours, because remember the 12 hours we didn't know where he was, for 12 hours he was tortured, he was raped, he was mutilated, he was murdered, and then his dead, lifeless body was dragged behind a vehicle in the streets of the city. Mm-hmm. The media knows this, the intelligence community knows this, the administration knows this, but they obviously don't want to share this because this is an indictment of biblical proportions against this administration.
Yeah.
They do not care for human life. I mean, the ambassador shared concern on his a journal for his life, and they served up this ambassador on a silver platter to the Muslim Brotherhood. This man who served for love of his country and for love of the host country. And I just think, I think people who aren't going to vote for Obama, this will be further confirmation, but I'm hoping maybe you can share this detail also in subsequent broadcasts for people who may not be listening today. And I shared in particular for the people who somehow still feel constrained to want to vote for this man. This truth needs to get out. He has so devastated our country for the past 4 years. We don't even know what he has planned for the next 4, especially when he says, I'll have more flexibility after November. So I just really appreciate your station. I appreciate you letting me share this. And this is just abhorrent what our ambassador had to go through that the administration could
Yes.
have well prevented. So I thank you so much for letting me share that.
All right, Diane, that's good. And what Diane is saying is the truth. And we've talked about this before, the kind of sexual brutality that he was exposed to both before and after he died, by the way. And there's some ads that are going up in the New York subways today. If you had to go to court, I mean, you got this artwork of the cross of Christ in a jar of urine. That thing is back out on public display now this week at the same time. Nobody's complaining about that. You don't have anybody breaking windows. You don't have any vandalism going on because Jesus taught us to turn the other cheek. At the same time, these posters are going up in subways in New York, went up yesterday, saying, look, in the battle between the civilized man and uncivilized and savages, choose the civilized man, defend Israel, defeat jihad. So basically saying, look, you got a contest between civilized man and savages, and that's what you had in Benghazi. Chris Stevens was a civilized man. He was up against savages who brutalized him in the name of their religion and the name of their God. And that's why I say, ladies and gentlemen, Islam and America, just not compatible concepts. And European nations are now learning this. I mean, even in Switzerland, they took a vote on whether any more minarets could be built in the country of Switzerland. And the people, 57% said no. We don't want any more minarets in the country of Switzerland. They're starting to become aware of some of the dangers to the social fabric that are caused by the presence of expanding Islam in their midst. Let's go to Robin in Tampa, Florida. Robin, you're on Focal Point with Brian Fisher. What's on your mind?
Brian, first off, thanks for being a straight shooter.
Welcome.
And next, with Obama's popularity, the way that people act around him and ooh and ah and all this other stuff, they can't admit they're blind. Do you think that he could be a forerunner to the Antichrist, yes or no?
Well, I've talked a little bit about eschatology. Maybe we can devote more of a program to it someday. My sense is that that Satan is always grooming a religion to be a counterfeit world religion. He's always grooming some spiritual leader to be a counterfeit kind of antidote to Christ or alternative to Christ. And he's always grooming a worldwide political system with one man at the top of the pyramid. And sometimes we can kind of readily see who he's grooming for that. Other times we can't. But I believe, according to Revelation, that's been the ongoing battle between Christ and Satan since the first advent of Christ. That's what's going on down all of human history, is Satan trying to groom a counterfeit religion and an alternative leader to the Messiah to come in to power. Where Barack Obama could fit into that, I think it's too early. It's too early to say. And again, my understanding of where America fits in prophecy is a little bit different because I understand most of the prophecies that we find in the Old and New Testaments, most of them, in my judgment, have already been fulfilled. But we're just going to have to wait and see. You know, a lot of Christians for generations have thought they were living in the last times, and not one generation has been right up to today. So we ought to live every day as if Christ is coming tomorrow and as if he's not coming for 1,000 years.
And if he's coming back tonight, it won't break my heart.
No, it couldn't happen too soon for me. All right, Robin, listen, thank you very much. I appreciate that. So that's it for today. Focal Point, AFR Talk. Thanks for being in the listening audience with us. Glad to have you on board. My voice actually got a little bit stronger as the program went on, although I have a feeling I'm going to suffer a pretty serious relapse when I get home and stop talking. Could be a crash and burn program tonight. But I appreciate your concern, appreciate your prayers. Thanks for listening. Thanks for your calls today. Now may the God of peace, who brought again from the dead our Lord Jesus, the great shepherd of the sheep, equip you with everything good that you may do his will, working in us that which is pleasing in his sight through Jesus Christ. Don't forget, we're fighting a winnable war. See you tomorrow.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast do not necessarily reflect those of American Family Association or American Family Radio.